Welcome to the Triple Win Leadership Podcast with Will Linssen, where we explore cutting-edge approaches to help leaders attain a triple win: better leaders, better teams, and better results. Today's episode is part of our series AI in Leadership and dives into the theme that is no longer futuristic, that is part of today's reality, and it's important and it's urgent now. And that theme is human-AI collaboration for leadership excellence. Our guest today is Dr. Mark van Rijmenam. And Mark, welcome, and thank you for coming to our show.
Thanks for having me.
Mark is a strategic futurist and an award-winning global keynote speaker, known as the digital speaker. He's the author of the award-winning book, Now What? How to Ride the Tsunami of Change. And he's the founder of FutureWise, which offers noise cancellation for your brain by sharing verified human-sighted intelligence for the world's best thought leaders on navigating AI disruption. So before we start, let me give you a short overview of what we're going to be talking about today. You will discover how to authentically integrate AI in your work as a leader, in your work in your team as a team member, and in your work with your coworkers. Also, how to nurture AI as a human AI inside teams, as AI as your thought partner, as your collaborator, as a person, but also in collaboration with other people in your team. And also how to lead a more systemic transformation with the right rigor and with the right accountability, and at the same time empowering your team to get the effectiveness that you're looking for. So be prepared to rethink your approach in leadership and rethink how AI can empower you and help you as an individual, as a leader, and as a team member. And you'll walk away with a number of actionable insights that lead to boldly and responsibly usage of AI in a world where human and artificial intelligence co-create the future together. Mark, shall we dive into our questions?
Sounds like a great plan.
Good. Then how can leaders authentically integrate AI as a collaborative partner to enhance their decision-making and creativity, rather than viewing AI just as a tool?
Well, I think the way the world is currently changing really shows us that AI is no longer a tool, but is going to be an active participant within an organization, and how employees and leaders can collaborate with these AI agents. And I think that changes the game entirely. It's not like you have a SaaS platform or you have a CRM tool that you use. No, it really integrates with how you as an employee like to work within the work that you need to do. And the recent research even showed that your persona as an employee or a leader versus the persona of your AI agent that you're interacting with actually matters. So this goes a lot further than just having a tool that you shout out questions to or give prompts to do work for you. It actually creates this human-machine collaboration that goes further than an ordinary tool. And I think a lot of people forget that. They think, AI is just a chat window that I talk to and I fire questions in it and I get answers from it, and that's quite nice. But if you want to really leverage the possibilities of these AI agents that we have to our availability at the moment, then you need to take a different approach with this.
Evidently, kind of the AI helps us to be more self-aware, right, and manage ourselves better. And at the same time, I hear you talking about the AI also being more us. Is that the way I should understand this? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, I think we should see AI agents as part of the team. And this actually goes back to my research of my PhD that I did 8 years ago, where I argued that we should no longer see, it was a theory. I won't bother you with too much of the theory, but it's a theory called social materiality, which indicates that if you look at organizations, you look at the social, which is all the human components, and you look at the material, which is all the non-human components. It can be a computer, can be a software program, can be a chair, a desk, etc. And my argument was that AI is going to behave differently, will have a different form of intelligence, and therefore it's neither social nor material, and we need a third component, the artificial, that joins us in the organization. And we sort of see that coming through right now, where a lot of organizations in the big tech especially, they argue for now, you need to have this collaboration, and you need to have AI agents on your team. McKinsey hired 12,000 AI agents, so to say, to work alongside the consultants, to do work for them, while they focus on the tasks that remain uniquely human. And I think that's sort of the difference, where you have now an actor, being an AI agent, that has the capability to take actions almost independently, for good or for worse, and to go on and about finding, doing the research that you would like it to do. But how you question it, how you interact with that AI agent is really important and determines the outcome that you can expect.
The AI is really your thought partner in this whole process, and when you have a human being as your thought partner, they stay who they are, but the AI kind of morphs with you, into you, become part of you, and the other way around. Is that a way to look at it?
Yeah, I think so. So I play a lot with AI, obviously, and I use all the different tools. And I think the way you look at how I interact with these tools really has an effect on the outcome that I get. If I've been playing with ChatGPT 5.2 and giving it instructions to give me responses in a certain way, the outcomes are fundamentally different than if I would change those instructions to have a sort of a different personality or treat my input in a slightly different way. I'm also playing with Claude Opus 4.6 at the moment, which is I'm really impressed with of how well it understands what I'm trying to do, how well it comes back with content that I didn't even ask for, but is pretty good. We've sort of really gone through a shift in the past, I would say the past couple of weeks, early 2026, with the launch of these Opus 4.6, Codex 5.3 from OpenAI. It has really leveled up, and I think that's fascinating to see. And the more this is able to take action independently, almost, the more we should pay attention of how we are integrating it in our team, how we are managing it, how we are managing our teams that manage these AI agents. In a world where those shifts are happening, I think leadership is moving from a lot more from commanding, so to say, to coaching your employees and helping them understand and guiding them in leveraging these tools that will significantly increase their output.
So yeah, let's talk a little bit about the role of coworkers in this whole process, right? So how does that role of co-creation with coworkers play actually in this AI-driven leadership transformation, and how can leaders make that change kind of visible and useful and sustainable for themselves?
Well, let me give you a good example from the work that I've been doing in the past couple of days. I'm preparing for a workshop that I'm delivering, and for a large organization, and I just put in all the content that I had and been working on for the past couple of years. I gave the context of the organization that I'm working with, and I said I had my research assistant did a lot of research on relevant research for this particular company. I dropped it all into Claude, and I said, what am I missing? What can we expand? How can we draft sort of a future forward outlook on what's going on? And then it came back with these really interesting insights. It came back with full PowerPoint presentation, basically, that I can literally just input in my slide deck and run with it. Obviously, I would still manually adapt it, put my own tone of voice, my own message in there. But the fact that it can do that so quickly from just the various documents that I've given it is impressive. And I before we jumped on our call, I shared that I'm going through a repositioning of my website, and I've been doing that in collaboration with Claude, getting feedback back and forth, sharing what I'm trying to do. I come across different articles that I think are relevant. I drop it all into Claude, and we have this conversation with the AI that will help me improve. Now, I've done that exercise. The next step is that I handed it over to a human designer to actually design something that is in line with what I'm trying to achieve. I fed that back into Claude to get more feedback, and I use that entire conversation in the work that I was doing for my client. So the AI has all this background information while doing the research for me, but knowing what I'm trying to achieve. And that is just phenomenal. And that just is really a next level of how you can involve these AI tools within the work that you do.
So based on what I'm hearing from you, obviously with AI, we as individuals, leaders get bigger, better. The people who we work with in our teams, they get bigger and better as a professional. Now, as a leader, kind of control and trust are crucial for leaders to operate, because ultimately they are accountable for what happens. So how can leaders kind of have the confidence that the right decisions are being made when they are empowering coworkers who are obviously and hopefully are working with AI? And how can you then kind of lead and manage those people without a lot of oversight and people feeling micromanaged?
Well, I think you should focus on what I call the 3 E's. So you should focus on educating your employees and your team to understand what is going on. Because the world is changing at such a fast pace. We're really living in exponential times. And if you're not paying attention to what's happening within your environment, you snooze, you lose, as we like to say in Australia. And so give your team the tools to educate themselves, to become more up to date on what's happening, and to understand how their world is changing. That's step number 1. Then the second step is allow them to play with these tools, to experiment. It's important to be aware. I think recent research indicated that like almost 30% of organizations, there is shadow AI being used, which means your employees are using AI tools that might not necessarily have been approved by the organization, but they still use it anyway. And that means asking a question to a free version on ChatGPT on your phone, while the company policy clearly states don't use ChatGPT, let alone a free version, because all the data that you put in are going to OpenAI. This happens in all organizations all around the world. So give your employees the tools to play and experiment with these new technologies, and I give them the time to do so. And then the third step is to execute. Allow them to, after the experiment, after they've played around with it, allow them to execute and embed these tools and these agents within the work that they're doing, and to augment their themselves with the technology that's now available.
So what you're saying makes a lot of sense, but from a leader perspective, then I'm still asking myself, so what do I need to have in place so that I maintain accountable, yet the team remains autonomous?
Well, I think the way you can do that is what I mentioned at the start, is guiding your employees in this process. It means if you allow them to educate themselves in your weekly meetings, allow them to share what they have learned, so that whatever everyone has learned, you can learn from each other. If they have done experiments, allow them to share those experiments, so you can then understand what's going on. You can guide them in these experiments, which basically also means that you as a leader, you need to be up to date as well. You cannot just sit back and I'm just going to guide my employees. You need to be up to date as well, and that is becoming I think one of the most important things for organizations worldwide is staying up to date of what is happening, because if you don't, one of the things I always say, by 2030 there will be 2 types of organizations: those that use AI and those that don't exist. So you really need to embrace this, and you cannot expect that if you just say, "Oh, I'll just guide my employees and use the tools," but I can't be bothered. Then you will have a problem.
It's interesting that you say that how leaders need to be kind of on top of AI and technology. We did some research now about 30 years ago on technology savviness of leaders, and 30 years ago that was when the internet really kind of started being part of business, right? People got emails and people started surfing, and Amazon was born and that kind of stuff. And then in the turn of the millennium, technological savviness was one of the biggest issues where leaders were lagging behind, right? And over the last 7-8 years, people have repeatedly asked me, but this whole technology savviness of leaders kind of has that now improved, and is that less of an issue now? I always told them, no, it's becoming more and more important, and leaders are still kind of behind the curve. And with AI now, we're kind of really back to square one, where it's like, leaders, this is one of the most important things that you as a leader, as a skill, need to continue to develop, is to be technological savvy. And you just explained that very eloquently.
Well, I think a lot of leaders they forget. I've seen this for my entire career, is that a lot of organizations are very inward focused. They're busy with whatever they're busy with. They're busy with talking to their customers. They're busy with managing their product. But they're not really looking to the outside world. What is happening in the world? How is their environment changing? What are the signals that they can see that are coming across the horizon that they need to pay attention to? Because those signals might completely upend their business. And so many organizations are not paying attention to what is happening. And I think that is, I put an example yesterday on LinkedIn where I was playing with this Claude, and all these AI tools that allow you to create presentations by using their tool, Gamma and Tom or Tomo or Canva Magic Design. Great tool. I've played with all of them, but I was talking with Claude. I said, given my information, given my brand palette, given all the other things I shared with you, craft a presentation. And 5 minutes later, I had a PowerPoint presentation. I actually had an HTML animation that I can just publish straight to the web, completely in my brand colors. It took me 5 minutes. So all of a sudden, all those companies I've just mentioned are out of business because they don't have any moat anymore. So they don't have any reason for existing because it's just embedded in the new foundational models. That is what I mean with this. The world is changing so fast. These foundational models, they add a new feature, and an entire industry is thrown in the bin because it's just now part of the foundational models. So obviously, if you are a Fortune 500 company or a Fortune 2000 companies, it might take a bit longer. But even for those organizations with multiple products that they have, they still need to pay attention of what is happening, how their world is changing, and you might have been a supplier to an OEM for years. All of a sudden, that OEM decides to 3D print that product that you have been working on for decades, and you're out of business. And if you don't pay attention to those signals that are happening, where also in, for example, 3D printing, the developments are moving so fast, you have a problem. So you need to pay attention. You need to become knowledgeable, whether it is from an AI tool perspective, whether it is from a technology perspective, how your world is changing. If you don't, you will have a problem in the long run.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you already see that in the translation services, which are totally now being taken over by AI, and some of the legal services as an example. Now, let's flip that to the coworker part, because coworkers and team members also have the responsibility in a way to create trust and transparency and reassurance for their leaders that they are taking the right decisions, being empowered with AI. So as a coworker, as a team member, to my manager, what can I do to ensure that my leader feels that there is trust and confidence in what I'm doing when I'm using a lot of AI, realizing my manager is still accountable?
Well, I think you should, as an employee, from the other perspective, is that you should be open and transparent as well to your leader. You say, look, Mr. or Mrs., I'm using these tools, and this allows me to do X, Y, Z, and I want you to know that. And in fact, can I get a subscription to ABC because it will really speed up my work? And I think it is a two-way conversation between the leader and the employee in how you can leverage these tools for the specific work that you do. But it also requires the employee to be proactive and to do their own research of what is relevant for their work. Are you in marketing, and is it that you want to use an image generation tool because it will speed up your work for the marketing for the next campaign that you're doing? Allow that to you to use those tools. Have those conversations. It is a two-way conversation between the leader and the employee on which tools are out there, which tools you can use, how you can leverage it, how you can augment your work, and if that means that the work that you normally did in 40 hours you can now do in 15 hours. Then kudos, maybe do some extra work, take an extra day off for the same pay grade because the output is the same as you did before. I think this is sort of creating this balance between the work, the output that you deliver, and how you are doing that, and trying to bring the company that you work for forward in a way that benefits everyone. And if you don't, as an employee, you have to become native in these skills as well. Recent research showed, I think it's about 56% premium is being paid to people who understand these tools versus the people who don't understand these tools. So most organizations will ask, do you know how these tools work? Can you work with them? Do you understand how to prompt? Do you understand what's out there that's relevant for your job? And if the answer is no, you'll have a hard time in a job market that is going to shift fundamentally in the years ahead.
Yeah, so obviously, yeah. Also, that kind of brings me to kind of the role of leadership coaches, right? So how can leadership coaches support leaders in also addressing the kind of the ethical and the systemic challenges that are posed by AI integration in the work and the workplace? Yeah, just kind of, and part of that is also the shift that is taking place, right? For the interaction between the leader and the coworker, and the shift of the organizational culture as a result of that.
Well, I think from a leadership coach perspective, I think it basically the same thing applies. If you coach leaders at large organizations, you also need to understand how the work environment of your leaders are shifting thanks to emerging technologies. If you have a blind eye for how the world of leaders is shifting, then of course it becomes quite difficult to become, an efficient coach for those leaders. So that means also that you as a coach need to understand how the world is changing and what the sometimes dramatic implications are for those organizations that are embracing these tools, which means, teams are being reorganized, people are being let go. That you as a coach need to understand what that means. You as a coach need to understand what that means for a leader. If the leader needs to tell their staff, well, we're going to let go 50% of the people because AI is doing a better job. And you need to be empathetic for that conversation so that the leader can guide the organization in the right approach, in the right way.
I mean, what you just said is already a current reality. I have been coaching one of the global leaders who is actually in leading the customer support arm of a global company, and they literally decided end of last year to reduce 50% of their staff this year as a decision because of AI, and that has basically two consequences. So one, AI is taking over 50% of the people who are going, and the 50% of people who are left, they're basically left with kind of bigger, more complex customer issues that AI can't or shouldn't resolve, right? So the 50% that stays basically has a more complex, challenging workday. So what is your kind of take on that, or advice to leaders facing these situations? Because it's not a hypothesis, right? It's like the current reality of 2026, right?
Yes, it is a reality that I think a lot of organizations are not fully understand and fully seeing, because the combination of sort of capitalism and emerging technologies is creating this perfect storm where organizations are organization A is using AI tools to make their organization more effective, more efficient, higher profits, lower costs, etc. So as a consequence, the competitor, organization B, needs to do the same thing, because otherwise they are going to be out of business. And that's going to create this perfect storm. And because therefore they have to let go of staff, therefore they have more money at the disposal to spend, so they're going to spend that money on more AI tools, making the organization more efficient. And this is this perfect storm that is being created as we speak. And I think a lot of organizations, as well as a lot of governments who need to regulate the whole space, don't see this yet. Because I fundamentally believe that this is what is going to happen in the next couple of years. Over the past years, a lot of organizations still think AI equals ChatGPT, and we have got long past that. And are these AI agents perfect? No, they are definitely not. There are plenty of examples of tools such as OpenClaw deleting entire databases or email addresses or email boxes from the people who use them. So they are definitely not perfect. They are definitely full of security challenges that you need to navigate. But that is 2026. Fast forward 2 years, and 2 years in this world is an absolute lifetime if you compare to where we were 2 years ago and what is possible now. So fast forward at an exponential scale, what is possible in 2 years from now, you can sort of start to see that the landscape is going to shift dramatically. That is something that as organizations, as societies, we need to accept, we need to see, and we need to do something about that. Because if we are all trying to optimize for our own sake, because I am the shareholder of company X and I want to make more money because that's good for my shareholders, it's good for me, so I'm going to integrate AI and I'm going to lay off people, and etc., etc., etc. And company Y is doing the same thing, and company Z is doing the same thing. We might end up in a very bad situation with a lot of unintended consequences that will have a big impact on society and will not be beneficial in the long run. And I think that, unfortunately, a lot of organizations and a lot of governments as well do not recognize this. And I think that is highly problematic. The world is shifting so fast at the moment that if you don't pay attention, if you don't look at the long-term consequences of the decisions you're making today, you will have a big challenge in the future.
So part of that challenge now, which will extend into the future, is psychological safety, right? For the people at the workplace being in this, let's call it the AI storm, right? So how can leaders kind of foster, nourish that psychological safety and the transparency around AI and the usage of this, so that teams still feel there is trust, that people still feel that they're encouraged to collaborate, and that they are kind of okay to make mistakes and learn and things like that. So the psychological safety in the age of AI, how can you further reinforce that?
Well, I think the best thing would be to discuss about what's happening, to be transparent. You not say AI is not going to have an effect on us. Nobody's going to be getting fired. Nobody's losing the job. So everything is all rosy and nothing's going to change. That is not how it's going to pan out. And so not having that conversation with your employees is what I think would do more damage in the long run than having that conversation, treating them as adults and saying, look, the world is changing. We have these tools to our capability now. You have to learn them. You have to embrace them. If you don't embrace them, maybe this is no longer the right place for you, but you have to adapt with us as we adapt as an organization to the changing external circumstances. And so have that conversation with your employees, treat them as adults, and tell them that the world is changing, help them in figuring out what the implications will be for them. But don't surprise them by saying, oh, nothing is going to happen, we're not going to do anything, AI is not going to have an impact on your job, and half a year later, we're going to lay off 30% of the company because of AI. Just don't do that. Be empathetic, be human to your employees, treat them as adults, and allow them to have that conversation together so that everyone knows what's going on.
So part of that psychological safety is also people feeling kind of safe in their expertise area and in their knowledge, right? And one thing that is happening now is that leaders obviously have a lot of, let's call it, authority based on their domain expertise that they build up over years or decades, either in industry or product or whatever the expertise is. And now we're, of course, in a situation where if I have a young person on my staff who has a lot more time on their hand than I to research certain things and to also go into so many others domains and knowledge areas to kind of come up with much more creative, elaborate solutions to problems that we have in the business, that leaders easily kind of feel kind of outmaneuvered maybe, right? And that obviously erodes that relationship between the leader and their direct report, but also between people inside the team with each other, right? So how can people deal with that? How can leaders deal with that? How can team members deal with that to be comfortable in this almost competitive, collaborative space?
Well, it's a very good question. I think the way to be comfortable in a world that's changing so fast comes down to having on the one hand your juniors and your fresh graduates to join the team. Don't think as an organization that you don't need them anymore because AI will do the work. I think that would be a very short-term, not very smart solution. Leverage that with the domain knowledge, the domain expertise that is within your organization, and that combination with an AI agent that is very useful for brainstorming. Hallucinations is not a bug; it's a feature if you use it correctly. And it is that sort of triangle of AI agents with fresh graduates and interns or juniors who have a very open-minded to an organization generally, who often dare to ask, why do we do this? This doesn't make sense. Combined with the domain expertise of the seniors who have been in that in the domain, in that industry for 1 or 2 or 3 decades. That is a very interesting dynamic where you can leverage each other's strength to move ahead as an organization. So don't think as an organization, I don't need the interns anymore or the juniors anymore. Don't think we're going to hand over everything to AI. I think AI is a very useful tool, but the domain expertise is something that is extremely valuable that AI doesn't necessarily have. So unless you specifically fine-tune an AI on the domain expertise within your organization, then it becomes a slightly different story. But fine-tuning a large language model to your specific industry is still quite a big of an effort and not available to all organizations. And so you need to find a good balance there, where you use the new tools, you use the fresh insights from new employees, and you use your domain expertise from the seniors who have been in the industry for a long time.
So, based on what we discussed today, overall, I also sense that vulnerability that leaders need to have, things like, I don't have all the answers, maybe I'm wrong, let's start from a clean slate because we might all not know, right? That vulnerability, to be okay with that and to show that, because of AI, has become pretty much more important than ever at the moment. What is a good or a simple or an easy way for senior leaders to be better at that vulnerability? Because that has been, same as technological savvy has been a big issue for senior leaders. Vulnerability is that other piece, or is another piece. So what can leaders do to be better at being that vulnerable leader without losing themselves?
Oh, that's a difficult question, because it's, I think a lot of, if you don't have the capability to be vulnerable, to acknowledge that you don't hold all the answers, which for many leaders is not something they would feel very comfortable with acknowledging that they don't know all the answers. Although I would argue it's a strength if you admit that you don't know all the answers. But I think that is something that coaches, leadership coaches, should help with, to guide leaders in becoming more vulnerable, in acknowledging that in a world that changes that fast, you don't hold all the answers anymore. The playing field has opened up. It's not that you as a leader have a private window into all the data of your organization that all the other staff don't have, and therefore you have all the answers as a leader, and therefore you can guide your employees further. That world doesn't exist anymore. Everyone has access to the same data, pretty much, and so you need to acknowledge that as a leader, that you not necessarily hold all the answers, because you don't, and that your employees might hold answers that you remain a blind spot for you, and you need to be open to that.
Let me be a little vulnerable here in myself and ask your advice on this. When I'm talking to leaders about exactly this issue, I'm telling them in the past it was like, what's the problem? What are some solution options that I know, that you know, and now we make a decision, etc. That is now changing to, hey, team member or team members, let's talk about understanding the problem. Let's articulate the problem more accurately, that we kind of know what is the animal we're trying to attack here. Then let's define or kind of get a number of points aligned on what should we kind of ask AI or play with AI to get better insights in what solution options are and what a good decision would be. So having this now articulated together, so now, dear team member, go away, spend some time with yourself and AI and some other people, and then come back with the best insights that we all need to consider, so that we then together make a better solution. That has been currently my discussion line with senior leaders, to say you need to kind of step into that mode of vulnerability before you start talking out of your own history book.
Completely agree. I think we need to be open to have that conversation, and we, as leaders, we need to accept that you don't hold all the answers anymore. It's the same thing when you go to the doctor. Everyone is ChatGPTing or Googling what your symptom might mean for you, and you arrive at the doctor, fully informed, thinking that you know it all better than the doctor, and that can be very useful, can also be very dangerous. But I think the doctor needs to acknowledge that you are going to do that. So treat your patient as an adult and have that conversation at a level, at a much higher level, versus I'm the senior, I'm the expert, and you are not, and so therefore I talk top down. That world is more balanced now. Same if you're going to buy a car, you probably know more of the car that you're interested in than the sales agent trying to sell that car to you, because you've done your research and you know all about it. And so we have a level playing field at the moment. moment where the information discrepancy between the expert and or the leader and the employee or the non-expert that gap has closed. So you need to be open to, you need to acknowledge that, you need to be open to that conversation, and if you treat each other as equals, I think you would achieve a lot more.
Yes, I think we need to reconsider how we're going to spell adult, but maybe it should be spelled AI-dult, right? So.
I like that.
Wow, Mark, thanks for this conversation. It was really very insightful. A lot of things you shared around leaders and teams, how they can work better together and integrate AI in their life of leadership, in their life of teamwork together. Kind of any last message that you'd like to share to the audience based on our conversation today?
Well, I think my last message would be open to the change. Acknowledge that the world is changing, is shifting. Acknowledge that it is doing so at an exponential pace, and stay up to date. Educate yourself, experiment with the tools, and execute in a way that is beneficial for yourself, for your organization, and society as a whole.
Fabulous. Well, thank you, Mark, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us on this episode today of the Triple Win Leadership Podcast, where we explored the transformational power of AI in leadership and the human-AI collaboration. As Mark Rijmenam shared, true leadership excellence today is about embracing AI as a co-creator to enhance me and our self-awareness and our adaptability in order to empower the we, who we are, being our team as being more transparent, being more collaborative, working better together, so that we can lead our world in our business, driving systemic change, being better at creating the measurable impact that we need to make, integrating AI into our world. So as we close, consider this. How will you authentically integrate AI into your leadership journey without compromising that human accountability, that human empathy, and your responsibility as a leader and as a team member? So, Mark, before we close, how can our listeners and viewers connect with you and your work? Amongst others, the latest best-selling book that you published is Now What? How to Ride the Tsunami of Change.
Yes, so people can find me. There's only one Mark van Rijmenam on the internet, in the world. So you can find me quite easily. You can find me on thedigitalspeaker.com. And if you want to stay up to date on fast-changing topics yourself, you can go to futurewise.com without the E in the middle, where we offer human-verified intelligence on fast-changing topics, so-called noise cancelling for your brain, so you can be in the know without being out of time.
Thank you. Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining the Triple Win podcast, and stay tuned for more insights on leadership and in our current series of AI on leadership. And I'll see you next time when we talk about the Triple Win, better leaders, better teams, and better results.